My husband called me at the wedding venue on the day of our daughter's wedding.
I'm sorry, honey, but I've been in an accident and I won't be able to attend my baby girl's wedding. I'll make it up to her. I promise.
I wasn't worried at all. As a matter of fact, I was getting angry at that point. I was not angry, not only because he disappointed me about trying to make it to his own daughter's wedding extremely last minute, but also because I actually knew exactly what he was doing that day. I was so disgusted with him, and I told him exactly how I felt. You know what? It's actually a good thing, because the truth is, I don't freaking want you here.
What?
I told him everything as he blurted out a surprised exclamation on the other end of the phone. This is the story of how my husband of nearly 30 years ultimately stabbed me in the back right when our daughter was about to have one of the greatest moments of glory in her entire life, and how the situation became rightfully so desperate for him that his life as he knew it completely transformed into a hopefully eternal stroll through the depths of misery. My name is Rosemary Marshall, and I'm 50 years old, a housewife. My husband, Beckham, is 48 years old and used to be my junior colleague at the company where I used to work. I left my job when our daughter Giselle was born, and after what seemed to be a couple months, she had turned 25 years old about a prior month to the beginning of this story. She got married this year, moved out of her home for the first time in her life, and is having a wedding in 4 months. More recently, I'd been calling and messaging her to ask her about what the preparations and the arrangements are for the wedding. I would have loved to talk to Beckham about all kinds of things regarding our little girl's big day, but that couldn't happen very often because he was busy with work. Thinking back, 5 years ago on the day of Giselle's coming-of-age ceremony, and even though the company was closed for a national holiday, my husband said he had worked even on this particular day, so he never got to see his own daughter in kimono. Beckham's grandparents on his mother's side are very traditionally Japanese, given that Mr. Heihachi Natsumura is the big head of the Buddhist temple in mainland Japan. His mother, Miki, with her kanjis literally translating to beautiful princess, married Beckham's father, Tyler, who worked in a local bank at the time, after he essentially saved her from a group of aggressive high schoolers. My mother-in-law was an absolute bombshell in her prime, and many guys wanted her hand in marriage, but while he was on vacation in Japan, Tyler won her heart as opportunities for her to practice English became more frequent, and Mr. Heihachi himself proved of Mr. Tyler's as his daughter's groom. Even after marriage, after moving abroad to be with her husband, and after childbirth, my mother-in-law kept her family traditions intact, and one of them was by giving her children an authentic coming-of-age ceremony. As an extension of that, and seeing how she is such a sweet woman, I thought it would be nice to give my Giselle that same moment of glory too. Everything was beautiful, and Giselle was in perpetual awe of her grandmother's Buddhist kimono made in 1956, and Giselle herself looked dazzling. And Beckham was not there to see her as such. I can recall when Giselle was in high school, he could easily take time for her entrance and graduation, but things were different now. The question was, why did it have to change? I do understand that Beckham got a big promotion 5 years ago, a few months after Giselle's coming of age, and that's when things started to change. And for the past 5 years, he has been in that same situation, often working overtime and commuting to the office even on holidays. Nothing would change in this new lifestyle of his, and time just flew by inexorably. By the time my daughter's wedding was 2 months away, we had finally gotten an invitation delivered to our house. I took it in my hand and thought to myself regarding my husband, "Look, I know you're busy with work, honey, but this one time is absolutely non-negotiable." I called out to him when he came home that day. "Look, honey, the invitation for Giselle's wedding arrived."
Damn. Is it that time of the year already?
"I know it seems like you're busy every day, but you're going to make it to the wedding, right? Giselle specially planned the wedding to be on a Sunday, so that you would usually have the day off, you know? Surely you'll be coming." When I semi-asked pushed him, his response was something like this.
Well, let's put it this way. I'll take the day off when I can. That's the best I can do for the time being.
I lost my temper immediately. It's your daughter's wedding, for crying out loud. Why the hell are you so reluctant? No matter how busy you are, if you tell the company it's your daughter's wedding, they will surely understand you need a day or two of absence. Then Beckham became even more vehement than I was.
I'm the head of the department, Rosemary. You don't know anything about what's going on in the office these days, so don't you dare try to make it seem like it comes second to something else.
When I tried to reply that it was second to everything else, it was his only child's wedding, for Christ's sake. He disappeared into the bathroom as though he was running away from the argument. I was nowhere near the satisfaction that I expected this conversation to give me. Of course, the groom, Giselle's husband, is called Chase, by the way. Such a sweet young man. Chase's parents, the Hiles, were going to attend, and although the groom's grandparents were no longer with us, the bride's grandparents, my own parents, and parents-in-law were also going to be there. I felt that my husband's attitude at this time was suspicious indeed, so I boldly decided to ask a detective agency to investigate his behavior. But I couldn't have Giselle's wedding with such bad atmosphere floating between my husband and I. So, while I indeed suspicious of the foul play on the part of Beckham, on the outside, I made an effort to repair our relationship as much as I could, even if only a little, so that he would feel more inclined to attend the wedding. One of the things I did in an attempt to essentially woo him over to attending the wedding was to make him more a boxed lunch every single day before he left for work. There were times that we just skipped lunch altogether because he simply wouldn't have time to head out somewhere for lunch during his break, and instead slurp his protein drinks at the office instead. At first, my husband didn't like this sudden change at all.
What's the matter with you? I don't want this!
But after a few days he began to accept it. Under no circumstances must I ever allow that my husband does not attend his daughter's wedding because of nothing but our bad relationship. With this in mind, I devoted myself to my husband, doing my best to make him more comfortable with his family. A week later, perhaps because of my efforts, Beckham walked up to me and said,
I think I can scratch enough time to attend the wedding, Rosemary. I'll still have to work on her big day, but since it'll start in the afternoon, I'll do my utmost to make it in time for the afternoon ceremony.
I'm so glad. Thank you for doing what you can, Beckham. Giselle and I will not forget this. I was so relieved that I immediately told my daughter about it. She jumped with excitement as well, and I really thought that things were looking up to us. But unfortunately, my joy was short-lived. At around the same time, I received results from the detective agency and learned that this was a pretense of kindness on the part of my husband. I despaired at the reality, but at least I was determined to keep this fact hidden until after the wedding. I wasn't going to ruin her moment of glory for the world. We had plenty of time to think about what to do next after the ceremony was over. I put the report from the detective agency in the cabinet where I kept my valuables. Then one day, 2 weeks before her wedding, Giselle came over. I had decided to help her pay for the wedding at least a little, so I decided to give her some cash to pay in advance. That's why I invited her over to my house in the first place. I opened a cabinet to get the cash I had arranged for her, and I saw the envelope from the detective agency, still tucked away in its yellow envelope, only postponing doomsday until my darling daughter could experience a world where everything was as still as it ought to be. I let out a sigh, as had I been trying so hard to forget about it. To have it reappear in my face in such a manner made my heart sink. I had vowed to keep this a secret until the wedding was finished without any problems occurring. But in reality, I wanted to talk to someone about it so badly. I wanted to do something about it right then and there, but just for another while longer. I had to keep on lying to myself and acting strong in front of Giselle. I felt empty, lonely, and bitter. "What's wrong, Mom?" Giselle, who had caught me standing motionless, contemplating the future, asked me worriedly. "Oh, it's nothing, darling." I quickly put on a convincing smile and took out the money I had put together for her. I decided to let my daughter stay over that night, as it had been a long time since she had been back home. As we were having drinks and spending time after dinner, she suddenly said, I don't remember Dad coming home this late when I was still going to high school. Well, he's a lot busier with work. There was no way I was going to let myself say what was really going on, so I gave her a curt answer. I see, that's tough. But he's coming to the wedding. It's the week after next, right? I forcefully changed the subject. I'm getting a little nervous. I hope it's going to be a nice wedding. With how much time and dedication you put in planning it all, I know it's going to be amazing, sweetheart. Thereafter, we talked mainly about the wedding, but after perhaps another 15 minutes, I was hit hard by the alcohol for the first time in a while, and I felt sleepy all at once. I yawned. Oh, I'm getting a little sleepy. I think I'll go to bed soon. Really? I'll take a bath before going to bed. Good night, Mom. Good night, Giselle. Sweet dreams. I put a lid on my feelings and went to bed, letting the memories of the past 25 years of my daughter's growth flash before my eyes. I remember falling asleep with tears running down my cheeks and a smile on my face. Even though the wedding was scheduled to start in the afternoon, the organizers' party had been very busy since the morning of the big day. I accompanied Giselle to the venue 3 hours before the ceremony. The venue was a luxury hotel with a splendid, cathedral-like hall, donning yellow and orange stained glass, which let the sunlight inside as a bright curtain of warm light. Seeing my daughter dressed as the bride with that scenery, I was filled with the realization that she was finally getting married, and my heart did a little dance in my chest. An hour and a half had already passed, and as I was rushing around, helping getting the venue ready for the wedding, more and more family members started to gather for help. And the wedding rehearsal was about to begin, but I still didn't see Beckham. I wondered if he had arrived yet. I was worried, and the moment I picked up my phone, it shook with its familiar buzz. Speak of the devil, it was an incoming call from Beckham. Hello? I moved to a deserted place and answered the phone.
I'm sorry, honey, but I've been in an accident and I won't be able to attend my baby girl's wedding. I'll make it up to her. I promise.
What? He was in a hurry to get to the venue when he hit a guardrail on a curve on the road and had an accident. He was now in the process of being rescued by the police, and he was going to a nearby hospital because of a neck injury. When I heard the name of the hospital, I was stunned to hear that he was coming so close to the hospital right at the last minute. So close, and yet so far, and it made me lose all hope.
I don't know if I can make it because of the lineup for the holiday clinic.
Indeed, the hospital my husband was referring to had a 2-hour wait on weekends, and holidays more often than not. To be honest, I wasn't worried at all at that point. As a matter of fact, I was getting furious. I was furious not only because he disappointed me about trying to make it to his own daughter's wedding extremely last minute, but also because I actually exactly knew what he was doing that day. Thanks to the results of the investigation done by the detective agency, I was so disgusted with him, and I told him exactly how I felt. This occurred because of his own carelessness and poor judgment. You know what? It's actually a good thing, because the truth is, I don't freaking want you here.
What?
I told him everything as he blurted out a surprise exclamation on the other end of the phone. I know that you weren't at work to begin with today.
What do you mean?
Yes, indeed. He was actually meeting a woman today. To my great dismay, when I first read the results of the investigation, she was someone he'd known for 5 years. Someone who became his junior when he was promoted to department manager. Even today, you never really had the intention of coming to your daughter's wedding, but your cunning girlfriend told you that people would get suspicious if you didn't. So she convinced you to go, right? That's why you decided you'd freaking show up. And about the lunch boxes, she was the one who told you to accept them from me because I'd otherwise suspect you of something. I know everything, Beckham. He replied pathetically to my words, as if someone was trying to stuff him into a high school locker.
Why did you say that?
Why? Because the detective agency even sent me the audio recordings of conversations between him and his little darling, whose full name turned out to be Julian LaFranchi, but I didn't have time to explain that all to him right now. Anyway, I've got to go. I'm busy with preparations. You go on and spend time with your darling Juliana." With that, I hung up the phone. Soon after that, my phone started shaking again, but I was so annoyed by its persistence that even the vibration was louder than a jet engine. I turned off my phone and shoved it into my bag. During the introduction of the relatives, I explained that my husband was away because he was working long hours. I told everyone I didn't know if he was going to be able to make it to the ceremony or if he had the intention of showing up in the first place. At the rehearsal that followed, my daughter had to walk down the aisle with the groom on short notice. I apologized to my daughter for the last-minute turn of events. "I'm sorry, Giselle. I know this isn't the rehearsal you envisioned." She smiled softly and replied, "Don't worry. The person I most want to see me walk down the aisle is you, Mom. Thanks to you, I'm standing here today. Thanks for raising me to become the best of myself that I can be." My heart lifted towards the sky with those kind words of hers. The wedding and dinner reception were filled with happiness. Beckham didn't show up until through the end, but I didn't think anything of it. As a matter of fact, I had completely forgotten about all of it. Eventually, the reception ended on a very splendid note, and all the guests started to leave the venue. While the bride and groom were changing, I apologized again to Mr. and Mrs. Hiles, the groom's parents, my own parents, and Mr. and Mrs. Marshall, my parents-in-law. I humbly apologized for my husband not being able to come today. As a matter of fact, he had an accident on the way to the wedding, and I couldn't afford to worry you all, but also realized that not telling you anyone may have caused more harm than I intended. I'm so sorry. Everyone started to voicing out their concerns about Beckham's condition. Don't worry, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. He sounded pretty lively on the phone before the wedding started. I am truly sorry, everyone. As about my head, my daughter came out at just the right moment. I apologized again to her as well. "I'm sorry your father couldn't come to the wedding today, darling. I can't begin to imagine what you must have been feeling right now." Then she said something I did not expect in a million years. "It's okay, Mom. I'm glad he couldn't come. To be honest with you, I didn't want him to after all." My eyes opened wide at my daughter saying the exact same thing I had said on the phone a few hours ago. What she had said next left everyone falling on deaf ears. "I know that Dad's been cheating on you, Mom. I'm sorry, but I didn't know you looked so depressed when you opened the dresser drawer the day I went home to collect the money you offered me. I thought maybe something inside was making you so sad, and I had to find out for myself. I went downstairs after you went to bed that night and found the envelope in the drawer." It was such a shocking statement that it left me and the rest of the family speechless. He hasn't even worked today, and he was actually meeting with his new girlfriend in secret, wasn't he? Actually, no, sorry, it's not his new girlfriend. The two traitors had been together for 5 years now, was it? All of my relatives' mouths were wide open. Well, even if I hadn't seen the envelope, I kind of suspected all this already. Actually, I was secretly thinking that I'd forgive Dad if he made it to the wedding. But now that it's come to this, I can't forgive him. Not in a million years. "I'm sorry." That's all I could say in response. "Why are you apologizing, Mom? It's not your fault," she continued. "So what are you going to do? You getting a divorce?" What? I'd been in pain for a long time by that point. I thought I was alone, confused, depressed, lost. But at this moment, I realized that I wasn't. My daughter felt the same way as well. I looked into her straighter in her eyes, and the hatred for Beckham, Marshall that I had been keeping at bay all this time, came rushing to me as powerful as a tsunami. I found myself saying, "Yes, I want a divorce." Miki, my sweet mother-in-law, who had been silently listening to everything thus far, uttered a single word. "Oh." I don't know if she heard her grandmother or not, but Giselle continued without paying attention to her. "Then let's go to that bastard and get you that divorce right now." "Wait, now?" "That's right. I have to go to him right now, or I won't be satisfied. He hurt my darling mother. Not on my damn watch. Then my parents approached me.
Don't worry. If this is gonna be the case, we'll go with you. We'll do what we can to help.
Seeing the look of concern on my parents' faces, I knew I had to be strong in this situation. Don't worry, Mom, Dad. This is a family matter between Beckham and I. I can't let my mom and dad get in any trouble. Then I said to everyone present, I'm truly sorry to have said some things that are difficult to listen to. I hope I can do what is right for my family. As I bowed my head, a hand was gently placed on my shoulder, and when I looked up, it was my mother-in-law, Mickey Marshall. Her husband, Tyler, stood at her side, his right hand on her right shoulder, his left hand reached for mine.
Rosemary, dear, you are forbidden from apologizing. We ought to be making amends around here. And mark our words. We'll give you all the help you want regarding the divorce. Alongside your parents, of course.
Mom and Dad nodded in sync in approval. I'm really sorry about this, Rosemary, son. We'll go with you. A squad had formed. One where our common point was that we couldn't Beckham him for what he did, and our mission was to bring him to justice. We headed for the hospital, the four of us, myself, Giselle, Mickey, and Tyler. When we arrived at the hospital, Beckham was just coming out of the hospital.
What are you doing here?
My husband, who had a corset around his neck, looked at us with wide, terrified eyes. I am so disappointed in you. I will never forgive you for this, you know. Beckham tried to calm my furious daughter as he retorted.
It was an accident, darling. I was in such a hurry, you know, because I wanted to see you in your moment of glory so badly.
No, if you really wanted to, you would have come to the venue right from the beginning.
Well, it's my job.
The bastard, who had his parents and daughters standing before him, all fuming with anger and disappointment, acted as though the earlier phone call had never even happened. For the sake of language, it's in English, but Miki yelled at him in Japanese using a devilish tone. I already know you were never at work. Rosemary's son told me everything. At her words, her son started apologizing as if he was in a huge hurry.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I don't need such a meaningless apology, I shouted. I want a divorce. Then you won't be my father anymore, and I want that.
And we won't even see you as our son anymore, lad. You're on your own.
Giselle and Tyler added to my initial blow.
No! 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 No!
Beckham started to cry uncontrollably, but we didn't pay any heed to him and turned to leave.
Please! Please think about this again!
He tried to run after us, but perhaps his neck snapped or something, and he immediately cowered in pain right where he stood. That was the last time I ever saw him. We officially divorced after that. I immediately packed my belongings and left my house. I then demanded $40,000 in alimony from my ex-husband, and after I handed over the evidence from the detective agency to a lawyer, demanded the same amount of alimony from Juliana, the woman whom he cheated on me with. Apparently, the woman is also married, and her husband left her after this incident. In the end, they were in debt because of the huge alimony payments, and Beckham came to his parents crying, but they turned him away, saying adamantly they would not support him at all. I heard all this when my in-laws came to my house to apologize once again. After the legalities were over and done with, I got a new apartment and started living alone. I thought it was too old to go back to my parents' house, and more importantly, my parents are still going strong even though they are in their 70s. There was no sign that they needed nursing care anytime soon. Giselle, on the other hand, became worried about me now that I have to live alone, and invites me over for dinner every so often. Oh well, I have some amazing news for you today, Mom. What news? I'm finally going to be a mother. You mean you're pregnant? I'm going to do my best to be a wonderful mother like you." I was so happy to hear her words that I couldn't help but shed a tear. Surrounded by such a wonderful family, I feel like I'm on the top of the world right now.